This is an Action News Jax Family Focus Special. America 250. Jax, Then and Now. Presented by Public Supermarkets, First Coast YMCA, First Florida Credit Union, and Ackerman Cancer Center. It flowed from a river.
This is Jacksonville, sprawling giant of the St. Johns.
From farms and forests.
On these fertile plains, men fought and died to make freedom ring throughout the land.
To the industrial age.
This is the South of romantic legend, whose beginnings were the beginnings of America itself.
From the tough times.
This is the normal and entirely unaltered daily life of a low-income family in Jacksonville.
To the good times.
There's no better place for the youth of our state and nation to expend some of their limitless energy.
We bring you a look back. Action News Jax, America 250. Jax, Then and Now.
Welcome to America 250, Jacksonville Then and Now. It's our celebration of Jacksonville history and our nation's independence. I'm Tanika Hughes.
I'm Chief Meteorologist Mike Burrish. We are coming to you from the USS Orlick on the St. Johns River. The river and this ship are emblematic of Jacksonville's past and future. The river, shaped by people, is now deeper than it was when the first Europeans arrived.
The Timucua were the first peoples in the area that came to be known as Jacksonville. 300 French colonists led by Jean Ribault established Fort Caroline on the banks of the St. Johns River in 1564. They barely survived their poor planning and poor relations with native groups. The French would be forced out of Florida by the Spanish, who had their own colony in the south in St. Augustine.
Action News Jax Chandler Morgan shows us three men who signed the Declaration of Independence were once prisoners in the ancient city.
I think that many people know about what you're telling me.
Standing watch over Matanzas Bay is the Castillo de San Marcos.
That's what we call it today, but that's the Spanish name. Now there's an English name to it, and it's Fort St. Mark. And that was the name that the British gave to it when St. Augustine was the capital of British East Florida.
After the fall of Charleston in 1780, dozens of American patriots were sent into exile here. Among them were three men whose names would already be etched into American history.
Three of them from South Carolina were actually signers of our Declaration of Independence. So you have Edward Rutledge, you have Arthur Middleton, and you have Thomas Hayward Jr. Now, the most dangerous one, the one that the British considered the most dangerous, was the Lieutenant Governor, Christopher Gadsden. And he spent his whole exile inside the fort in the dungeon.
It's a chapter of history many Americans never learn, says Gary Sass, an expert in our local history and owner of Ad-Lib Tours.
People don't think about Florida as being part of the American Revolutionary War era, because they think of the original 13 colonies. But the British had 15 colonies. There was East Florida and there was West Florida.
And just steps away from where tourists gather today, two of the Declaration signers spent months living under British confinement.
So that's where Edward Rutledge and Thomas Hayward Jr. lived, right there.
The three men stay in St. Augustine for roughly 10 months before eventually being exchanged. Before leaving, they staged one final act of patriotism.
After they knew they were going to be exchanged, they had a reception, they had a banquet, a secret reception that was here. And during that reception, they had written a song to the tune of God Save the King. But their song was God Save the 13 states, the 13 United States.
The ancient city offers a reminder the footsteps of history are still hiding in plain sight.
In 1763, Spain traded Florida to Great Britain in exchange for Cuba. They built the King's Road from St. Augustine to Georgia. The road crossed the St. Johns River at a narrow point. The Seminoles called it Wacapalaca. The British called it Cowford. Near that crossing point along the south bank of the St. Johns River, you can relax in the shade of one of Jacksonville's most iconic landmarks.
Action News Jax Giona Gavino tells us how a majestic tree is tied to the spirit of the American Revolution.
Through the twisting canopy, this treaty oak is older than Jacksonville and older than anything else that surrounds it.
Under the sprawling limbs of downtown's treaty oak.
If I was a kid, I'd be climbing all over this tree.
History isn't just remembered.
This would have been better than Disneyland.
It's still standing, says Chuck Sailstrom. He's a member of the Sons of the American Revolution Jacksonville chapter.
We know 250 at least, and probably they talked about that Native Americans used it as a place of gathering as well. So they could very easily be 400 years old.
During the American Revolution, Liberty trees served as rallying points for patriots in all 13 colonies. This massive southern live oak has now been designated a national Liberty tree.
This is tricorn hat.
Beneath its centuries-old shade, Gray Chandler and Paul Tucker embody history from head to toe and face.
I just grew it. When the hair came off the top of the head, it moved to the face. 1971, Fort Knox, Kentucky. When I was in the Army, it was like a little caterpillar. And then I just fertilized it and it grew.
It's woven into their lineage.
They have to have a direct line to somebody that participated in the revolution, either by being a soldier or by being a judge or notary public, or maybe even giving the troops a cow to eat.
The tree, once nearly lost in the 1930s, was saved after public outcry.
There was conversation about cutting the tree down. Jessie Ball DuPont understood that this was significant, and so she gave them some funding, and they were able to make this into a park.
Turns out, these two men were part of their own family tree.
And it came out that we are fifth cousins. Said, who thought?
America's history revealing surprising connections along the way.
Just finding out about your past is really exciting. It's really cool. You learn so much. I found out that I'm related to Taylor Swift. Isn't that the craziest thing in the world? But I'm also one of 1.4 million people who are related together.
From the treaty oak to today, we're more connected than we realize.
Man, look at that.
During the Revolutionary War, forces in Georgia made several attempts to invade British Florida and take St. Augustine. The first in 1776 fell apart shortly after it got underway. In 1777, Georgia militia lost to British soldiers, loyalists, and allied Indians at the Battle of Thomas Creek in what is now Duval County. It was the southernmost battle of the Revolutionary War. A year later, the Battle of Alligator Creek Bridge took place in what is now Callahan in Nassau County. Continental militiamen from Georgia chased British regulars but were turned back. The British took Savannah and were reinforced with troops from St. Augustine. In 1781, the British surrendered after the Battle of Yorktown, leading to the Treaty of Paris and the formal end of the Revolutionary War in 1783.
On June 15, 1822, the residents of Calford wrote a letter to President John Quincy Adams asking to be designated a customs port of entry, named Jacksonville, after Florida's first territorial governor, Andrew Jackson. Jacksonville was officially incorporated by the territorial legislature in 1834.
At first, Florida had two counties, St. John's and Escambia. On August 12, 1822, Duval County was carved out of St. John's County. It was named for William Pope Duval, who was governor of the Florida Territory from 1822 to 1834. It stretched from the Atlantic to the Suwannee River. What is now Alachua, Nassau, and Clay counties were later cut out of Duval County.
Moses Elias Levy bought land in what is now Lake City in 1820. His goal was to establish a Jewish utopia in Micanopy, now south of Gainesville. He owned slaves but supported emancipation. His son David Levy added the name of an ancestor, Yulee, to his name. Yulee was elected to the House of Representatives and then became the first Jewish person elected to the U.S. Senate. After starting his second term, he resigned to support the Confederacy. Jacksonville was a strategic location during the Civil War. In fact, the Confederacy used it for a cattle supply line.
Yeah, the Union occupied Jacksonville 4 times, and it was a base for the Union Navy's blockade. Action News Jack's Madison Foglio looks at one of the key fights during that time, the Battle of Olustee.
In 1864, the state of Florida was under the control of the Confederacy. However, at that time, Jacksonville was occupied by the Union.
Northeast Florida and Jacksonville and North Florida in general was the Wild West of the 1860s. In the streets of Jacksonville, there was just fighting left and right. You would have pickets and small little forts blocking off streets. where you would have Union troops shooting at Confederate troops just right across the street from each other.
That same year, Union Brigadier General Truman Seymour ordered his troops to head west from Jacksonville to weaken the Confederates' assets.
He starts sabotaging the railroads, starts getting into small little skirmishes with cavalry units. All the while, the Confederacy are bringing in reinforcements from South Carolina and Georgia.
During this time, the Confederacy was dealing with the aftermath of losing the Battle of Gettysburg in Pennsylvania just a few months earlier. That battle was considered to be a turning point for the Union.
So the Confederacy is really trying to maintain their foothold. Meanwhile, the Union is trying to get a foothold into Florida as well because they're trying to bring the state back into the Union.
In February 1864, it was here in Olustee when the Union and Confederate soldiers met for what would be the largest and bloodiest battle in the Civil War here in the state of Florida. Now, the Confederates stood their ground, but not without a fight.
The colored troops were a really big reason why the Union weren't completely massacred at that battle. The 54th Massachusetts in particular that held their ground and allowed the rest of the Union Army to fall back to a safer location while they held the Confederates off.
The Confederates' victory in the Battle of Olustee was significant as it prolonged the Confederacy in Florida for a little longer, but not in Jacksonville.
Even after the defeat at Olustee, Jacksonville was still under Union control, and it's because of the Union and the strength of their Navy in the river that they were able to keep that control.
The Union's Navy first took control of the St. Johns River in 1862, and it's a major reason why today we have a massive naval presence in Jacksonville.
Coming up, Jacksonville becomes a tourist destination, the culture behind some of our area's signature foods, and railroads put Jacksonville on a track to growth.
You're watching an Action News Jax Family Focus Special, America 250, Jax, Then and Now. Presented by Public Supermarkets, First Coast YMCA, First Florida Credit Union, and Ackerman Cancer Center.
Just 12 years after the Civil War, Jacksonville was growing again.
As it always has been, the St. Johns River was Jacksonville's reason for being, its focal point. Schooners carrying away lumber, naval stores and cotton, and steamboats bringing in settlers, tourists, and health seekers kept the river busy.
There were new resorts at Pablo Beach, Mayport, and Port George Island, and there was growth from Arlington to Green Cove Springs. 4 small banks were enough to make Jacksonville Florida's financial capital. Jacksonville had a dozen hotels as fashionable as any in the north, drawing tourists.
With a metropolitan population close to 10,000, Jacksonville had no water mains, no sewers.
Then yellow fever hit most of Florida in 1868 and again in 1888. Fires and explosions were deliberately set on Bay Street to destroy the fever germs. Thousands of people fled to the suburbs, and Jacksonville's reputation was damaged.
The story of America's history is also a story about Black history, and that includes the undeniable impact of the Gullah Geechee people, who have a rich legacy across our region. From the flavorful dishes we enjoy to the winding marshes that define our coastline, the influence of the Gullah Geechee people is everywhere. The Gullah Geechee are descendants of West and Central Africans enslaved on coastal plantations from the Carolinas to Florida. They were sought out by their captors for their knowledge of rice farming, navigating tidal waterways, and surviving subtropical climates, which sustained the plantation economy.
They were the labor that built much of what this country has become. So without the Gullah Geechee community, there is no America.
Urban planner and historian Ennis Davis is a 6th-generation descendant and recently co-authored this book on Jacksonville's Gullah Geechee heritage. Davis says the Gullah Geechee settled in neighborhoods all around Jacksonville, including Brooklyn, out east, and here in La Villa. But their influence has reached well beyond our city's borders. Popular cuisine like shrimp and grits and one-pot meals like seafood boils are tied to Gullah Geechee culture. And music. The first documented live performance of the blues in this country actually took place on Ashley Street at the Colored Air Dome in 1910. So not New Orleans, not St. Louis, not Chicago,
out in these places right here in La Villa.
La Villa was also home to brothers James Weldon and John Rosamond Johnson, who wrote and composed Lift Every Voice and Sing. The hymn became a rallying cry inspiring black families to head north and west to escape racism and oppression in the Jim Crow South in the first half of the 20th century.
But without that great migration, there is no Harlem. There is no Bronzeville in Chicago. There's no Black Bottom in Detroit. There's no South Central in LA without that coming to play. So a movement here in 1916 literally changed the demographics of how we view the U.S. Today.
Lift Every Voice and Sing Park is a tribute to the Johnson brothers and La Villa's history. Gullah Geechee descendant Carla Michelle Jones is the park's creative manager.
Hi, I'm Carla Michelle.
And also shares Black history stories on social media.
It's part of our culture to pass down the stories orally. So we haven't historically had a written word. It's just kind of something where you sit at your grandparents' feet like I did. And so that is what started me sharing my stories on social media about Jacksonville.
Jones and Davis say Gullah Geechee heritage continues to shape America's story, and they hope it's shared for generations to come.
Retaining that culture from Africa through enslavement. So that is powerful. So the way I internalize it and embrace it is that if they could do that then imagine what I can do now.
On May 3rd, 1901, the Great Fire of Jacksonville devastated the city, and it set it on a new course for the 20th century. 146 city blocks burned 2,367 buildings and displaced almost 10,000 people. What was built after the fire laid the blueprint for Jacksonville's current downtown.
Out of the Great Fire, Jacksonville was once again poised to grow.
Action News Jack's Kajasia Hawkins shows us how shipping and then trains brought people and businesses to Jacksonville and all of Florida.
Jacksonville is positioned perfectly to be able to distribute cargo and products throughout the United States easier and faster.
Jacksonville has shaped itself into a commercial transportation powerhouse since its earliest days. Even before our famous 7 bridges, before trucks traveled down 95 to Buc-ee's, even before the city became a major port for the country's paper goods. Jacksonville's leadership in transportation started with just a simple way to cross the St. Johns River. And in many ways, 250 years later, our area is still a major hub for how Americans and their products get from point A to point B. A crossroads of 95 and I-10, home to the International Port of Jacksonville and the headquarters of a powerful railway network.
But Jacksonville is a very important part of the nation's freight railways.
And our railways play a huge role in Jacksonville's and America's history, transporting many of the goods people use every day, from shoes to even the automobiles we drive. And while CSX was formed in 1980 and headquartered here in Jacksonville in 2003, its roots in Northeast Florida go back decades, all the way back to Henry Flagler's railroad empire, according to Craig Camuso, a regional VP at CSX.
What also makes it very important is our work with the ports. Jack's Port, the Savannah Port are 2 very big entities that are moving goods and commerce throughout the world. And CSX is proud to be a partner with both of them.
And both rail and port experts say the 2 forms of transportation work in tandem to support our bustling economy.
And so you've seen the railroad industry grow and develop to where we've got the huge yards out by Beaver Street, and there's already talk about expanding passenger rail to come into Jacksonville.
According to Jacksport's historian and former Propeller Club president Lindsey Brock, it remains one of the region's biggest economic engines. A reminder that Jacksonville's connection to transportation started strong and has a future as bright as headlights.
I see Jacksport expanding, and you're going to see more trade in Jacksonville, more things, more warehouses, again, which means more jobs. So I think the future for Jacksport is only bright as can be.
Before there was Hollywood, there was Jacksonville, a warm place where the early film studios could work. The first opened in 1908. The Gulf Between was the first feature-length color movie in the U.S. filmed on location in Jacksonville. Richard Norman opened the Norman Studios in 1920, focusing on films for Black audiences, making films like The Flying Ace. It's now a museum in Arlington.
Coming up, the USS Orlick's place in American history, the fight for civil rights on the First Coast, and a day at the zoo.
You're watching an Action News Jax family focus special, America 250, Jax, Then and Now. Presented by Public Supermarkets, First Coast YMCA, First Florida Credit Union, and Ackerman Cancer Center.
During the Spanish-American War in 1898, Jacksonville became a training center for soldiers. Camp Cuba Libre in Springfield was headquarters of the 7th Army Corps. Jacksonville is full of historic landmarks and locations, and the USS Orlick is one of the newest.
Action News Jax Ben Becker takes a look at the historic ship's story.
Majestically sitting in the St. Johns River, the USS Orlick stands out as more than just a museum ship. As the wind whips, it's a floating piece of American history.
If this ship could talk, what would it say?
It would say it has been through a great deal and it has seen what the best of what America has to offer.
Dan Bean is president of the Florida Historic Naval Ship Association. Bean says the Orlick is a symbolic part of America's 250th birthday celebration. The destroyer served in the U.S. Navy from 1945 to 1982, including the Korean and Vietnam Wars, earning 18 battle stars and becoming one of the most decorated ships of its kind.
Well, it's just illustrative of the history of the country. You know, through the 80 years, the Korea conflict, the Vietnam conflict, went to Turkey, participated in the Desert Storm activity. So 80 years of that history of 250, she has been there.
Since arriving in Jacksonville 4 years ago, the Orlick has been restored, upgraded, and retrofitted to become a tourist attraction and educational tool on the North Bank.
We have over 1,000 volunteers hours a month. We can't do it without people like that. And I think, you know, when people want to complain about the lack of development of downtown, well, you have something you can do to help it. And just come down here and help us build this.
Inside the ship, visitors can explore cramped sleeping quarters.
These are beds.
Racks. That's what we call them.
Plus engine rooms and the bridge where sailors once navigated through combat zones. For many veterans like Pat Stroud, it's personal.
Well, I spent 30 years of my life on these type of ships, so it's, you know, you walk aboard, it's like being 18 again, and you think you can do everything you did back then, but now you're 80 and you realize you can't.
Over the past 3 years, the state has kept the Orlick afloat, putting up $2.25 million for the Orlick, and recently the House and Senate agreed to put up another $782,000 in this year's budget, potentially bringing the 4-year total state investment to more than $3 million. As for Bean, he says as the country celebrates 250 years of independence, remembering the Orlick's history matters more now than ever before.
And I think she's like, hey, I'm a tough SOB. I'm here to be observed. I'm here to be respected, and I'm not going anywhere.
The numbers here at the end of Orlick's Pier stand for every aircraft carrier that's ever called Naval Station Mayport home.
The USS Essex was the first of 7. The USS John F. Kennedy was the last in 2007.
Coming up, the Roaring 20s come to a crashing end, and world wars left their mark on Jacksonville, and how weather shaped local history and how we live.
You're watching an Action News Jax family focus special, America 250, Jax, Then and Now. Presented by Public Supermarkets, First Coast YMCA, First Florida Credit Union, and Ackerman Cancer Center.
Jacksonville, Florida, for example, is an average American city.
America's Roaring 20s came to an end with the Wall Street crash in 1929 and the Great Depression.
More than 7,000 of this city's families are compelled to live in unfit homes and neighborhoods.
This film, made by the U.S. Housing Authority, explained the effort to get people out of a Jacksonville slum. This family got moved into a new home in Brentwood.
A happy day it is for every family that can escape from the misery of a slum home and environment.
World War II fueled even more growth in America and Jacksonville.
Action News Jax Jake Stofan explains how the nation's defense shaped our area.
I recently read a quote. America is only celebrating its 250th birthday because our military just celebrated its 251st. Our nation's independence was fought for and won, not given to us. And for nearly 9 decades, the military community here in Jacksonville has played a critical role in the fight to maintain it. A public vote to sell land to the Navy was the start of Jacksonville's Navy town status. That's according to NASJAX historian Ron Williamson.
It was like 98.5% of the people here wanted this base here in Jacksonville. So that tells you right there that people love the military here.
The base was commissioned in 1940 with a focus on training pilots, especially for anti-submarine warfare, a fight that came to Jacksonville shores.
The actual anti-submarine operations off the coast of Jacksonville when the SS America was torpedoed by a German submarine off the Jacksonville coast.
Assisting in that effort, the newly commissioned Naval Auxiliary Air Station Mayport came online in 1944. Current commanding officer Captain Michael Trumbull says budget cuts almost ended the base, but Mayport was reactivated in 1948.
In the Cold War and all the risk, and they realized that Naval Station Mayport was so strategically important to defend the East Coast and the Atlantic from the approaches to the southeast that they needed to keep it up and running.
Both installations played critical roles in Korea, Vietnam, and conflicts in the Middle East still happening today. Mayport saw its peak activity in 1987, with 30 ships, including 2 aircraft carriers. That same year, Iraqi missiles struck the USS Stark, killing 37 sailors.
President Reagan came and actually honored the ship and talked to the families, and honest truth was prove the point that I think Jacksonville does very well, that what we do matters and that what their sacrifice accomplished was important.
NASJAX also hosted nationally known figures, including President Franklin Roosevelt, whose visit resulted in the renaming of a section of US 17 in his honor. The late US Senator John McCain was repatriated there after returning from his captivity as a prisoner of war in Vietnam.
Jesse Brown got his wings here, the first African-American naval aviator. Got his wings at NAS Jacksonville.
The Blue Angels even got their start at NASJAX in 1946. Today, the 2 bases are home to almost 20,000 active duty service members and thousands more civilian and reserve personnel, constantly adapting to meet the nation's ever-shifting needs.
On a daily basis here, our PAs are still supporting operations worldwide and down in the southern hemisphere.
The whole city rolls out red, white, and blue. I hope that they realize that the work that's happening here is truly causing deterrence around the world for bad things coming to our shores.
It's a mission supported by those at home here in Jacksonville and those carrying out operations abroad.
The flames of Desert Storm.
In 1991, the first casualty of Operation Desert Storm in Iraq was a pilot who grew up in Jacksonville. Captain Scott Spiker was shot down the first night of the U.S. invasion. His remains were not found until August of 2009.
The first American casualty of the Gulf War was found buried in the desert west of Baghdad, near the wreckage of his F-18 Hornet.
The nation watched as his remains were returned to Naval Air Station Jacksonville. In May 1964, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. came to St. Augustine to support civil rights protests, including wade-ins, where the Florida Highway Patrol had to keep the peace.
We are not seeking to wreck St. Augustine, as some have mistakenly believed.
King was arrested on June 11th, leading protesters to go into the pool at the Monson Motor Lodge, where the manager poured acid into the pool. Days later, the Civil Rights Act of 1964 became law.
The Jacksonville Zoo, finest in the Southland.
This promotional film from 1963 paints a brighter picture of Jacksonville, showing a day at the zoo.
Long John has a way of inviting you in so he can beg away your goodies.
Where the only trouble is a mooching giraffe.
People and places obviously shape history, but one of the most powerful forces that shaped America and Jacksonville is my specialty, the weather.
When it comes to 250 years of weather, what better place to start than with our founding fathers? Thomas Jefferson, the so-called author of the Declaration of Independence and third president of the United States, considered weather one of his most important hobbies, taking weather observations every day in the early morning and late afternoon. He wanted to prove to Europeans that the weather was sunny and mild in the new land. Even better known for his interest in weather was Benjamin Franklin, and of course his kite and lightning experiment in 1752, proving that lightning is electricity. Franklin also determined weather had a tendency to move from west to east, and Franklin was the first to map the Gulf Stream off the U.S. East Coast. Closer to home, the tropics have certainly left their mark. In 1898, the strongest hurricane to ever hit Georgia made landfall just north of Jacksonville at Cumberland Island on October 2nd. Nearly 200 people were killed. A local record 16-foot storm surge inundated Brunswick, and Fernandina Beach was heavily damaged. An even more infamous hurricane was Dora in 1964. The Category 2 storm roared ashore September 10th just north of St. Augustine. It was a week to remember for the local area, with President Lyndon B. Johnson visiting to declare a national disaster area, and the Beatles playing in Jacksonville despite widespread power outages. In 1992, Category 5 Andrew, well, not a local hurricane, ravaged far south Florida, stripping some homes to their foundation. It was this storm that resulted in much stricter building codes for the state of Florida that have proven to be very effective since the codes were implemented in 2002. These codes were first widely tested just 2 years later when 4 hurricanes, Charlie, Francis, Jean, and Ivan, all had major impacts on Florida over just a 6-week period. In 2017, Hurricane Irma first hit the Keys, then moved up the west coast of Florida, helping to cause the most severe flood in downtown Jacksonville since 1849. The storm also shut down a river ferry in Putnam County that had been running in one form or another since the 1700s.
Nothing in history has knocked this place out. Not the Great Depression, not the Civil War, not the Seminole Indian Wars were fought right over here in 1835. None of that has destroyed it except for one storm.
But Florida has also been susceptible to other kinds of weather disasters, even snow. The Great Snow and Ice Storm of 1989 crippled northeast Florida and southeast Georgia, resulting in the only Jacksonville White Christmas on record. Severe cold spells destroyed orange groves that once produced lots of citrus as far north as Jacksonville in the 19th century. Back-to-back hard freezes in 1894 and 1895 caused farmers to abandon citrus farming. Then there's a wildfire history. One of the most severe wildfire seasons in 1998 shut down parts of Interstate 95 in Flagler County as wildfires continued well into the summer. And much more recently, the Brantley County, Georgia Highway 82 wildfire destroyed more than 100 homes in April of this year. Jacksonville, the cultural and economic gateway to Florida, can also be a weather smorgasbord.
Beating the Florida heat is a historic concern. It led to the cracker-style homes like this one from the 1870s in Crescent City, Putnam County. Breeze passed through tall, narrow windows, and porches provided shade. High ceilings let the hot air rise. Dr. John Gorey, a physician in Apalachicola, is considered the father of air conditioning. The museum in his memory features the ice-making machine he invented for homes, aiming to prevent diseases like malaria. Willis Carrier invented the modern air conditioner in 1902, contributing to Florida's 20th century growth.
Coming up, from jazz to southern rock to rap, Jacksonville leaves its musical mark. Hammer and Hank takes the field, and Jacksonville blasts off.
And lift off.
You're watching an Action News Jax Family Focus Special, America 250, Jax, Then and Now. Presented by Public Supermarkets, First Coast YMCA, First Florida Credit Union, and Ackerman Cancer Center.
When people think of great music cities, Nashville, Memphis, and New Orleans come to mind.
Well, Action News Jax Phil Amato shows us that Jacksonville's been shaping America's music for more than a century.
The plaques in Jacksonville's new Riverfront Music Garden honor some of the biggest names in music. Ritz Theater archivist Mitch Heeman says they tell a story much larger than most people realize.
People are starting to finally come together and understand that it's important and worth talking about.
Following emancipation, the La Villa neighborhood became one of the South's most important centers of black culture, entertainment, and music.
That's really where the history really starts to take hold.
By the early 1900s, Jacksonville was a major stop for black entertainers, traveling what would later become known as the Chitlin Circuit. Louis Armstrong, Duke Ellington, James Brown all performed here. Just a few blocks from the Ritz Theater, brothers James Weldon Johnson and J. Rosamond Johnson wrote Lift Every Voice and Sing in 1900.
This is a major musical milestone that Jacksonville can claim.
Lift every voice.
More than a century later, it's still performed across the country and is known as the Black National Anthem. Then came a young blind musician who arrived in Jacksonville at just 15 years old.
This is where he got started. This is where he found his voice as a teenager.
Ray Charles lived in La Villa, performed in local clubs, and learned from musicians who helped shape his future.
He didn't even sing the way he sang later. Like, he didn't know how to sing. He was copying Nat King Cole. He was copying people. And it was here in La Villa that he got taken under many wings and really came into his own.
By the time Ray Charles left Jacksonville, the city had already shaped American music for decades. But Jacksonville's musical influence was only getting started.
And I would argue we certainly are the birthplace of Southern rock.
Heeman says the Allman Brothers first came together in Riverside before launching a movement that would influence rock music for decades.
Lynyrd Skynyrd always claimed Jacksonville as their home, and it really truly was their home.
The Van Zant brothers carried Jacksonville's name around the world. Other hometown Southern rock bands like 38 Special and Molly Hatchet also have roots in Jacksonville. And the city kept creating new sounds. In the 1990s, Quad City DJs brought a Jacksonville dance party to the nation. Then came another generation of artists. Tim McGraw, Limp Bizkit, Shinedown, Yellow Card, bands that carried Jacksonville music onto national charts and world tours, a musical legacy celebrated on the banks of the St. Johns.
A restaurant named Insta-Burger King opened up on Beach Boulevard in 1953. That evolved into the Burger King chain. The building is now La Favorita grocery store.
Coming up, the man who won a Super Bowl ring, an Olympic gold medal, and the heart of Jacksonville. And Jacksonville scores an NFL franchise.
You're watching an Action News Jax Family Focus Special, America 250, Jax, Then and Now. Presented by Public Supermarkets, First Coast YMCA, First Florida Credit Union, and Ackerman Cancer Center.
In 1953, Hank Aaron played for the Jacksonville Braves. He was the first black player in the South Atlantic League, and the team won that year's championship. Jim Crow laws kept him separate from his teammates. He went on to the Major League Milwaukee Braves in 1954.
The Stadium of the Future is under construction right now, and it's promising to build on Jacksonville's rich sports history.
Right over my shoulder, in fact, right now, Tanika. Action Sports Jack's Stuart Weber has the story of the only person to ever win both a Super Bowl ring and an Olympic gold medal.
Bob Hayes is the only man that God blew breath in to win 2 Olympic gold medals and a Super Bowl ring. How special is that?
And that man is Jacksonville's own Bullet Bob Hayes.
Bob Hayes really hitting the stride now. He's really moving along. It could be, it may be a new Olympic record.
The Bullet nickname showcased the world-class speed Bob Hayes had. He won the gold medal in the 1964 Olympics in the 100 meters and another one in the 4x100 relay.
Dallas Cowboys, winner of the Vince Lombardi Trophy.
8 years later, Hayes would win a Super Bowl with the Dallas Cowboys, a gold medal and Super Bowl ring, creating a legacy and likely immortality. But the story was deeper than that in football. Hayes' speed was so hard for teams to defend, he helped birth the zone defense in professional football. Action Sports Jack's Dan Hicken had the privilege of doing the last one-on-one interview with Bob Hayes prior to his passing in 2002.
He had a lot to say, and Bob always had a lot to say, and there's no question about the fact that he was and is the greatest athlete to ever come from Jacksonville.
Bob Hayes grew up on the north side and attended Matthew Gilbert High School. He would go on to star at Florida A&M in football and track. His track career concluded after those 1964 Olympics, and then the focus shifted to football. He was a 7th-round draft pick by the Cowboys and led the NFL in touchdowns in 1965 and 66.
The fastest human in the world and probably the fastest guy ever to play in the National Football League.
It would take longer than expected, but in 2009, Bullet Bob Hayes was inducted posthumously into the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
It wasn't just the numbers, it was the fact that Bob Hayes revolutionized the game of professional football, and that alone gets you into the Hall of Fame. I'm glad he finally got in, but him not being here was somewhat sad.
Down the stretch.
His legacy includes having his name on one of the most prestigious high school track meets in the country. The Bob Hayes Invitational recently celebrated its 60th running and annually attracts the best young stars to Jacksonville. Bullet Bob Hayes, a Jacksonville native, a Super Bowl champ, a two-time gold medalist, and a legacy that might never be duplicated, even in another 250 years.
It was always the Jags!
But the city was awarded the NFL franchise in 1993 and played the first season in 1995 under owners Wayne and Dolores Weaver, head coach Tom Coughlin, and first draft pick Tony Baselli. More than 30 years later, the team still has Super Bowl dreams, as Everbank Stadium is transforming into the stadium of the future, set to open in August 2028.
Coming up, a look at part of our TV station's history as Jacksonville launches into outer space.
You're watching an Action News Jax Family Focus Special, America 250, Jax, Then and Now. Presented by Public Supermarkets, First Coast YMCA, First Florida Credit Union, and Ackerman Cancer Center.
Channel 30, WAWS, Jacksonville.
That was Fox 30's sign-off in 1985 when the call sign was WAWS. The station ID changed to WFOX-TV in 2014, and these days our station broadcasts around the clock. Days after astronaut Ed White made the first American spacewalk in 1965, the Orlick assisted in the recovery of the Gemini 4 space capsule, while the USS Wasp got all the glory.
And while the Space Coast gets a lot of attention for spaceflight, Action News Jax Deja Mayfield shows us that Jacksonville has a huge role in the future of space exploration.
3, 2, 1, booster ignition, and liftoff.
Long before the historic launch of Artemis II in April, the hum of sewing machines filled this warehouse on Jacksonville's north side.
We're very proud to work for Wing Group because every day we save lives.
Louise Hagglesheap oversees the work for Wing Group, which runs companies named Mustang Survival and the Patton Company. Mustang Survival invented the world's first wearable flotation coat, then built survival gear for NASA's Space Shuttle program and Navy SEALs. The Patton Company was founded by Robert Patton Jr.'s grandfather, and the manufacturer has been involved in every NASA mission since Mercury. In 1944, Patton designed inflatable decoys to trick Nazi Germany on D-Day. That same year, Patton's single-seat inflatable saved a 20-year-old George H.W. Bush. After his plane was shot down, he waited for hours to be rescued on Patton's yellow raft. Decades later, Patton's inflatable life rafts were aboard the Orion capsule, serving as life-saving equipment in the case that the crew would have to eject the module, while Mustang provided these flotation devices, or PFDs, for the astronauts and recovery crew.
I know my family members watching it at the same time too, and knowing that I was integral, a part of building the raft itself.
Gavin James is moving to the beat of his own drum, playing the snare for the Jags drum line when he's not working at the Kennedy Space Center.
I am currently a senior test and integration engineer for the Orion crew service module. I was a drummer first, more than anything.
The East Texas native has been a lifelong musician before pivoting to a career in aviation at Embry-Riddle University. He landed a spot on the Jags D-line before finding his way into designing spacesuits. By the time he finished college, James was a double major in commercial space operations and physics.
Around the turn of 2025, I had gotten word that they needed people for the Orion and Artemis program. Next thing I knew, I was living back in Florida at Kennedy Space Center, and I worked on the Artemis II electrical closeouts of the vehicle.
From a Jacksonville warehouse to Kennedy Space Center, local hands are taking America back to the moon.
Thank you for joining us for our look back at more than 250 years of local history.
There's so much we could not include, so be sure to visit the many historical sites, museums, historical societies, and libraries to learn more about our past.
And join us for our newscast, where we can tell you all about the events that will become our shared history. For all of us at Action News Jax, thank you for watching.
Thanks for watching this Action News Jax Family Focus Special, America 250, Jax, Then and Now. Presented by Public Supermarkets, First Coast YMCA, First Florida Credit Union, and Ackerman Cancer Center.